My name was Private Joel Lockwood. I enlisted back in '67 for the U.S. Army. I traded my fiance for a rifle, my home for a tent, and 3 years of my life for someone else. Someone killed a life. I was one of those men. Though I don't think I ever actually killed anyone, at least I did my best not to. Then there are men who live to kill, like Sarian Stevens. He was a backwoods Carolina man who took pleasure in each gruesome act. The last I saw him was a few days ago when he waved me goodbye as I got on the bird. Godward dance. After a year of crawling through the jungle dirt, I finally earned my way home. I was one of the lucky ones, unlike so many others that fought in that country but didn't make it back. I was just so glad to finally be rid of Stevens. That man was a psychotic gun-ho, high-speed thief machine. He once taught me when I first met him. Soon, my count is 23, and all I felt was the recall of my rival. Like I said, psychotic. To his credit, after 2 years of killing, it finally got to him. 3 weeks before I left Name, he told me he wished he could be more like me. He wished he could undo the things he had done. He wished he could go back in time and stop himself. I told him, "Look, Stevens, I know you hate yourself, but there's still time to change the world you're on." If I remember correctly, I told him that right before he ordered me to storm the tunnel. All I really remember from that is a loud bang and watching Stevens pull me out with tears in his eyes. After I got myself off base, he made my way to the boat in Tenino. I was supposed to wait for a ride to take me back home to New York. Why didn't I just ride a bird to New York? Don't ask me, ask Uncle Sam. So I get to the depot and find out my ride is running a few hours late. I hadn't a bite to eat since I left country, so I made myself across the street to a small dinner. I ordered a big steak with a side of eggs. The waitress took my order and gave me a strange look. "Would you like a different chair?" she asked. I must have been fidgeting a little. It isn't a great feeling when sharp or mementos are moving around in your pockets. After I finished my steak and eggs, the waitress come back over with a bottle of Coke. She says, "I want you to have this for your service." My mind flashed back to Nam when we came across this piss poor village along the Perfume River. A little girl runs up to me, smiles, and hands me a bottle of Coke. She says something in her native tongue and walks off. I pull off the cap, and I'm about to take a swig when Steven slapped the bottle out of my hand. It then falls and breaks against the rocky road. "Why'd you do that?" I asked. Stevens replies, "Buddy, I've seen this trick before. There's glass in that Coke. One drink of that and you'll be bleeding inside." He then lifts his rifle, aims it at the girl, flips the safety switch and fires. What happens after he starts to recall? Lieutenant Higgins screams. Stevens, what the hell is wrong with you? The young girl's mother rushed to her bloody corpse with tears streaking down her very face. Stevens then raises his rifle again and fires at the woman. I snapped back to the reality, and the waitress was looking at me with a puzzled expression. No thanks, madam, I said. Yeah. I snapped back to the reality, and the waitress was looking at me with a puzzled expression. No thanks, madam, I said in urgency. She then motioned me just to take the bottle. Damn it, I don't want your fucking Coke, I screamed. She then walked away, still looking confused and a little sad. After that little incident, I paid for my meal, leaving a generous tip of the lady I insulted, and headed back to the bus depot. Within a half hour, my bus arrived and I stepped aboard. The grey-haired driver stood up on seeing my olive-drab face and greeted me with a firm handshake. Welcome home soon, he said in a thick southern accent. I took my seat, and the end of the tram charter tossed me the duffel bag in the seat in front of me, and reclined and wrestling with my legs across the cushion, hoping to catch some sleep. To my surprise, as soon as I lay down, the bus took off. I drew a deep, relaxing breath and quickly drifted off to sleep. I had a nightmare. I was back home. Stevens and I are pulling night guard on the tower overlooking the gate. He pulls out a cigarette and lights it. That's a nice lighter. Mind if I look? I ask. He hands it to me and I study it with my flashlight. It was a little hard to read the engraving with the red lens filter, but I was able to make out the price. I fear not the shadows as I venture through the valley of death, for I am the most evil thing there. I laugh a little and ask, fear not the shadows? What's that supposed to mean? Stevens lets out a big plume of smoke and asks, You read the Bible, boy? I shake my head. You see, there's a verse in Psalms that tells believers not to worry as they fear of their lives because God is with them. I changed the words a little to say, Yes, don't fear the shadows. Instead, you should fear me, for I am the most evil, if that makes sense. I look at him quizzically. Do you really believe that? He lets out another cloud of smoke and responds, I like to say it to myself when a firefight gives me courage. From down below the tower I hear Higgins yell in a hushed tone, Stephen, shut up, you crazy idiot. Do you want the entire MVA coming down on us? Stephen shrugs his shoulders and readjusts himself on the M60 as if to act like he's doing something. Prick, he murmurs. What did you say, Stevens? Higgins jets back. The jungle is thick, Stevens replies. Higgins now more upset than he was before Giles. Stevens, I saw what you did to that girl. Don't think won't end up in leaving birth when I tell the Cullen about it. Stevens clenched his teeth and mumbles, Don't think I won't kill you, Higgins. After a half hour of quick boredom, there was an eruption of gunfire in the tree line. Stevens lays down on them with a continuous burst of fire. I hunker down and call out targets. Hit him at 2, half to net 11, Steven yells. Reload! Reload! I grab a fresh belt and slam it in the receiver. Off in the distance, I hear a rumble and some squeaking. One of our tanks is rushing to the gate at full speed. From the tree line, 2 long streaks of black smoke stream its way. They hit the tank and explode into a ball of flames. Hard tube! Hard tube! Steven shouts to me. I put on my asbestos glove and change his 6.0 barrel. Laying them all together, he yells. I do so with the blooded round as fast as I can and cover and yell, What's happening? I then hear what sounds like thousands of people screaming in unison. I look up and see what looks like an entire battalion of Vietnamese running right for us, guns blazing. Stevens patiently waits for me to finish the task and mumbles, Fear not the shadows, as he then squeezes the trigger and doesn't let up. I grabbed my rifle and started firing a few well-aimed shots. Spam breath soon lined the floor of the tower. Cutting out targets became pointless. They were coming from all directions. I changed my magazine and I see Steven's barrel glowing red hot as his last rounds are shot off. He then grabs me and throws me over the ledge of the tower. He jumps over and lands on top of me. Before I can understand what's happening, he picks me up and we're running away. I take a glance behind me and the attacking Vietnamese are bomb rushing the gates. Simmons and I then run into the jungle, where we see Higgins running a few yards ahead of us. Simmons then aims his rifle and fires. He woke up screaming at the top of my lungs, and it started the old bus driver. He spoke the letter. They'll load soon. What's wrong? He asked. I took a few deep breaths and wiped the cold sweat from my brow. Just had a nightmare, I responded. The driver gently parked the bus, walked back to me and asked, Is there anything I can do soon? I shook my head. No, unless you can make me forget all the war crimes. You did something you shouldn't have? No, there was a guy in my platoon. He was murdered. Why do his crime upset you? I could have saved a few innocent lives had I just killed him. He nodded his head. I understand why you feel coldly, but I'm gonna tell you that you did the right thing by not doing it. I wiped away a fresh batch of sweat on my head. Why was it the right thing? He said. Soon I've seen the ugly face of war once, and I can tell you that some people just go crazy when faced with death. They lose all sense of humanity and the value their brothers and sisters of God to mere animals. Only later does it catch up to haunt them. You did the right thing. It's best to give people a chance to face their mistakes and change the big road they're on. That guy was contained psychopath. We just threw him out. I just hope the people of fate don't come back to haunt me. Did he ever show any remorse? Yeah. He broke down one day and told me he wished he hadn't done the things he had done. He told me he wished he could be more like me. If I were you, I will take that as a badge of honor. You went to war, saw the face of evil, and you didn't come home a murderer. You came home a man that evil envies. I unsuccessfully tried to hold back tears from his words. I started crying pathetically. The driver gave me a pat on the shoulder and walked away. He resumed traveling down the heavily wooded road through the Washington darkness. As usual, in the Pacific Northwest, it started to rain. I stared out the window as the thick raindrops rolled down the window. I flinched when I saw what looked like a person walking on the side of the road. At first I thought it was just some drifter. Then I saw it again, and again, and again. Something wasn't right. Why would there be so many people walking down a crowded road in the middle of the night? In the rain? The bus came up to a lighted intersection and stopped. I gasped when I saw someone running toward the bus door. It looked like a black silhouette, just like a shadow. I was about to yell to the driver, but he started moving again, and the shadow slammed into the side of the bus with a thud. I desperately hoped I could have drawn this up to me, just going insane and seeing things. But I saw the driver flinch a little when the shadow man made impact. I tucked my head below the window and closed my eyes, which was my biggest mistake. I fell asleep again. It's the morning after the attack. We were tasked to go out and take account of casualties. After the gun bunnies on the hill filled the sky with behive rounds, that is, artillery shells that shot tiny arrows everywhere. The horde was either killed or repelled. It was a slaughter, to say the least. There was friend and foe alike literally nailed to the trees from the tiny fleshed arrows. I kept the rake to my mouth to filter out the scent of moldering burnt flesh from when the flyboys came over and nabbed the entire area. After some time of collecting ash-covered dog tags, I found Stevens knelt over the body of Higgins. To my horror, Higgins was still alive, unconscious. Stevens has him pinned to the ground with the muzzle of his rifle prying open Higgins' mouth. Stevens then stabs his knife into his mouth. He then picks up a large rock and swings it at the knife handle. I can still hear the crack and Higgins scream as each of his teeth were being pried out. There goes Stevens! What the hell are you doing? Stevens looks at me after popping another tough loss. Hey Paul, gold is worth money, and this guy had a lot of fucking qualities. I shot in anger. Does he really have to suffer through that? Stevens rolls his eyes and grabs the pistol at Higgins' face. He points it at his forehead and fires. A spray of blood covers them both. That's not what I meant. I thought to kill you right now, you disgusting pig. Stevens shakes his head and goes back to popping out Higgins' teeth. He stops for a moment as if he suddenly feels disgusted with himself. He picks up the pistol again and rolls it at my feet. Then do it, he commands. I take hold of the pistol and aim at his head. I start to squeeze the trigger and stop. He's not even looking at me. It's at this point I realize he doesn't care. Either he feels remorse and wishes to die, which I doubt, or he truly believes in his fears, not the shadow's nonsense. I then see Steve shimmy himself away from Higgins' chest. I think the horror is over. That is until he stabs his knife into Higgins' belly. What the hell? I scream. Stevens looks at me and says he swallowed a couple. He then rips the blade across the chest and the corpse splits open. Upon awaking, my screaming made the driver swerve violently. The wheels slip on the wet road and the vehicle goes head on into the road ditch. The bus slammed into a tree. I was sent into the air and crashed into the seat in front of me. I lay there on the floor for a moment, feeling ashamed for what I caused. I heard the driver call out, "Are you okay?" I sat up and replied, "Yeah, I've been hit harder." The driver nods to me and attempts to back up. The tires turned rapidly and ejected mud into the wheel wells. The driver stopped trying to back up and exited the bus. I followed him with my eyes as he examined the situation with a flashlight. I saw a shadow casted before the light. I saw nothing of it at first, and then I realized shadows are cast away from light, not behind. I started pounding my fist against the window, trying to get his attention. He acknowledged me and shook his head. The shadow remained as he walked back towards the door. I looked closely, and the shadow was still there in the darkness, staring at me. I had not died, but the driver came up to me as I stared in fear out the window. I need to get to the next town and call a wrecker. We aren't getting out of this ditch without one. Damn near sunk 2 feet into the mud. I quickly turned my head to him in surprise. "No, please don't leave me here with those things." "What do you mean, things?" Part 2 is coming soon.